tonight, Texas countering with Nathan Eovaldi. The 2027 College Football Hall of Fame ballot was released on Monday with 227 names. One of those, former Arkansas defensive tackle Dan Hampton, who was a consensus All-American during his playing time with the Razorbacks in the late 1970s and was a key contributor on teams that helped establish Arkansas as a national power before they entered the SEC. The finalists will be announced early next year. The sports update brought to you by Progressive. Bundle auto and home, renters, or condo and save with Progressive. I'm Tony Desiri with your Sports Flash on 101.1 The Answer.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. California's progressives are eyeing other people's money again. The proposed Billionaire Tax Act would amend the state constitution to impose a one-time 5% tax on residents with a net worth above $1 billion. Supporters say it's just a one-time levy for worthy causes, but experience says one time rarely means one time, and the unintended consequences are real. The measure has yet to go before voters, but the threat alone has already pushed almost 40% of California's billionaire wealth out of the state. Gone. Along with it, income taxes, sales taxes, property taxes, and the charitable giving those individuals once supported. Wealth is mobile. It goes where it's treated well, and it's not hard to see why. California should remember that before it drives even more of its tax base away.
Live from Little Rock, Doc Washburn.
It's fun when they let me out to go talk to people.
He's like the adorable puppy, you know. He chews on your Christian Louboutins, but somehow you still love him.
They say I'm a distinguished radio talk show.
No insult intended. The news you don't get anywhere else. Doc Washburn.
It's good to be able to get out of the studio so that I can actually kiss hands and shake babies.
You just can't make this stuff up.
As we say here in the natural state, y'all come see us.
You better watch what you say, or you might just find yourself with the lead role.
The Doc Washburn Show. Weekday afternoons, 4 to 6.
If I don't lie down and take a nap, I'm going to keel over.
Doc Washburn on 101.1. The Answer.
Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc?
101.1 The Answer. The Doc Washburn Show continues. If you want to get on the air with me and discuss what I'm talking about, number to call is 501-401-1011. Now, I want to talk about the situation over in the UK that I think directly affects us here in the U.S., and the reason is because people are wondering, gee, why do you get all bent out of shape about some young fella who was murdered in the UK, and the police handcuffed the kid while he was bleeding out instead of trying to save his life? Because it is the result of liberal policies, and we have seen similar horrific things happen here in the United States. Now, remember, when Joe Biden was trying to occupy the Oval Office, he had a Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, who kept lying under oath in Congress saying that the border is secure. Now, Biden even said when he was running in 2020, we want to see a surge of aliens coming to our southern border. And so Mayorkas lied, said the border was secure, as they let millions of people come into this country illegally. And apparently several 100,000 minors, children, unaccounted for. And if you wanted to call in a concern, report some abuse, report something about minors who would come here either separated from family initially or who became separated from family, the federal government had one person to answer that phone call. That office had one employee. And there have been a number of American citizens murdered by people who never should have been here. And you have liberal politicians blaming the victims and blaming the Republicans who wanted the border secure. So what happened in the UK is not that far-fetched from what Democrat political types are doing in this country. Now, everyone was shocked when they went ahead and released the body cam video yesterday. It was worse than people imagined. The police treated Henry Nowak, 18-year-old, who had done nothing to anyone, horribly. And one of the members of the family of the murderer told the police he hasn't been stabbed, and the female police officer said, "I know, but we need to at least check." So where does the perfunctory, "Oh, I know, but we need to at least check"? Well, I'll tell you where it came from. And again, this is the sort of thing that could easily happen here. And I want to tell you something that most conservatives don't know. I'm always the one giving you the bad news and telling you the horrible things that are going on. But you know what? When it comes to Biden's Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, at least Republicans in the House of Representatives did the right thing. And you probably never heard about it. Every Republican in the House of Representatives, while Biden was still in office, voted to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Did you hear me say that? Every one of them. The most moderate, the most what we would call rhino, they all voted for this. Every last one of them. So when it comes to Arkansas, not just Bruce Westerman and Rick Crawford voted to impeach Mayorkas, but French Hill and Steve Womack, they all voted to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. So the Constitution says when somebody gets impeached, it doesn't matter if it's the president, the vice president, a member of the cabinet, whoever it is, then the impeachment is kind of like an indictment. It's like, okay, we're charging this guy with this. And then the U.S. Senate is required to hold a trial. And the person doesn't get kicked out of office unless 2/3 of the senators vote to convict, which is why we have had 3 presidents impeached, Trump twice, but none of them were ever kicked out of office because none of them were ever convicted. Andrew Johnson held on to the presidency by 1 vote. Anyway, so for the first time in our almost 250 years as a country, for the first time in about 236 years that there's been a Congress, the Senate, which was controlled by the Democrats, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said, "Hey, go take a flying leap at yourself. Blank you. We're not going to have a trial." And the Republicans in the House are like, "What do you mean you're not going to have a trial? I mean, the Constitution is pretty clear." What I mean is we don't care. We're not going to put Alejandro Mayorkas on trial. So the family of Laken Riley, who was murdered out for a jog on the campus of University of Georgia, and the families of all these other people who have been murdered, got no justice. And the same exact thing as what happened to Henry Nowak in the UK, stabbed 5 times walking home, only to have a family member of his murderer call the police, not an ambulance, but the police. And the police show up, and, well, he's a racist. He said racist things to us. Oh, well, in that case, we got to cuff this guy who's obviously dying. They're reading him his rights, and one of the female police officers opens his eyelids and shines a light and says, hey, his pupils aren't responding to the light. He's already bled out. He's already dead when they read him his rights. It could easily happen here. I'm going to tell you how it happened there coming up as the Doc Washburn Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer.
What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock?
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-6745. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-6745. That's 800-575-6745. Tax Relief Advocates, real solutions for real people.
On Salem News Channel, principled voices are shaping today's conversation. Scott Jennings brings clarity to the toughest debates. Josh Hammer's blistering commentary puts politics and culture on trial. And Alex Marlowe's insight connects us to what matters most. Watch anytime on Samsung TV Plus, Pluto TV, or find us on your screen at snc.tv. 3 new shows, 1 powerful lineup. Salem News Channel, across America.
From breaking weather coverage to emergency information and local voices, AM radio still matters. Congress is moving closer to protecting AM radio in every vehicle, but your voice is critical. Tell Congress to keep AM radio strong. Text AM to 39179.
Did you hear Congressman Bruce Westerman on the Dave Ellswick Show?
You can get people from the Democrats to many times support conservative policies. What's your special elixir that's helping you do that?
Well, there's different groups of Democrats up here, and there's some that there's issues that you can work with them on. And most of the time, it's just looking at the facts and finding somebody that wants to work for the good of the country, and we can work together on issues when we do that. It's really the far left of the Democrat Party that's sounding the bell and that's got the attention of the media. But when we look at, certain economic issues and issues with natural resources, we've been able to do a lot of good work on the Natural Resources Committee.
Don't miss Congressman Westerman, Wednesday mornings at 7:30 on the Dave Ellswick Show, 101.1. The Answer. There's a real battle going on, not only for our future, but that of our children and grandchildren. How do we ensure they have it better than we do? One way is to keep listening to us. We're your information source in the battle. 101.1, The Answer.
The Answer. Doc Washer Show continues. If you want to get on the air with me, discuss what I'm talking about, number to call is 501-401-1011. All right, so we're talking about the murder of Henry Nowak in the UK and how the police probably should be held accountable as accessories after the fact. because instead of trying to get this boy who's obviously bleeding out help, they handcuffed him and started reading him his rights when he was probably already dead by that point. And it's just horrifying. It's outrageous. The body cam video is out there now, and it's worse than we thought. The great Elon Musk tweeted out this morning, send the video to everyone you know, showing how heinously Nowak was treated by the police in his dying moments and how the police cravenly kowtowed to his murderer. Legacy mainstream media, same ones who wrote about George Floyd millions of times, are deadly silent about Henry Nowak. Okay, so we got his dad, a couple of cuts from his dad talking after the murder was given life in prison, which he could get out after 21 years yesterday. Here's Henry Nowak's dad, cut one, please.
The way he was treated was inhumane and degrading. His murder, however, was afforded decency. He was believed. He was not handcuffed when arrested. He was not handcuffed when transported to the police station. As far as we understand, he was never handcuffed at all. And, as Vikram Digwa himself told the court, whilst under arrest for Henry's murder, police even took him to the kitchen so he could choose his food. The contrast is unbearable.
Indeed, it is unbearable. And I'm going to tell you how it happened. I'm going to tell you how the UK got to this point here in just a moment. So hang on, because the concern is the same thing could happen here. Henry Nowak's dad, cut two, please.
We believe the officers involved remain on duty, although we understand some may have since resigned. One was allowed to leave the force before she had given an account to the Independent Office of Police Conduct of what happened that evening. The IOPC investigation remains ongoing. Whilst we await its final report, we are calling on the Home Secretary to ensure that the IOPC has the resources, authority, and independence it needs to conduct a full, fearless, and transparent investigation. Our family should not have to fight for the truth anymore.
By the way, the great Neo Berg over on X says, I'm shocked by how many people outside of X are unaware of Henry Nowak's murder. Instagram is full of people saying, who is that? What happened? Can you add some context? Most of us would probably not even know his name if it wasn't for Elon Musk liberating Twitter by paying $44 billion for it a few years ago. So God bless Elon for that. All right, now, if you're familiar with the idea of the pendulum swinging too far in one direction or the other, the analogy, I'll tell you how we got to where we got with the police callous indifference to the murder of Henry Nowak. There was a guy named Stephen Adrian Lawrence, who was an 18-year-old black British student from Woolwich, southeast London, who was murdered in what seemed to be a racially motivated attack way back April 22nd, 1993, while waiting for a bus. And the case became a cause célèbre. Its fallout included changes of attitudes on racism and the police and to the law and police practice. And it also led to the partial revocation of the rule against double jeopardy. Two of the perpetrators were finally convicted of murder 29 years later in 2012. So the report that was done about the way the British law enforcement looked at racially motivated murder, because again, 1993, the victim was black and the people who did it were white. The report was called the McPherson Report. And David Betts, social media influencer over there in UK, said that report and the murder of Henry Nowak are causally linked through the corrosive logic of multiculturalism and its institutional offspring, which led us to two-tier policing. By the time he was stabbed to death in December 2025, 18-year-old Henry Nowak would have been 8 years younger than the 1999 McPherson report. So the nature of the former, and especially the police response, is directly tied to the latter. Sir William McPherson's inquiry into the Stephen Lawrence murder case from 1993 redefined institutional racism expansively. His report instructed police to prioritize perceptions of racism from minority complainants. This well-intentioned reform, born of genuine outrage at one racially motivated murder way back in 1993, embedded a structural bias in UK law enforcement. Complaints from certain communities received swift deference, while the concerns of the native majority of the UK were often dismissed as prejudice. Over a quarter century, this shifted the state's posture from impartial referee to quasi-imperial active manager of ethnic sensitivities. Fast forward to Southampton, December 3, 2025. Henry Nowak, a Polish-British student, stabbed 5 times, including a fatal chest wound, by 23-year-old Vikram Digwa, who was legally carrying a 21-centimeter kirpan. It's a Sikh knife, S-I-K-H, a privilege extended to no others in British society other than the Sikhs. It's a religious thing for them. As Henry lay dying in his own blood, Digwa falsely claimed racial abuse, saying that he had a bruised eye. Officers handcuffed and arrested the victim rather than rendering immediate aid. Police later apologized unconvincingly, particularly after the leaked body cam footage emerged. The IOPC is investigating. This is not mere incompetence. It's the predictable outcome of McPherson report legacy. Officers socialized to fear being labeled racist more than failing to protect life. When you listen to Henry's father, you watch the leaked body cam video, don't look away. Henry did not get a dignified death. He died frightened, drowning in his own blood while being mocked and then advised of his rights. Scriptwriters would be sent back to the writer's room if they suggested something so on the nose in a gritty TV drama, yet this is grotesque UK reality. People should be furious about it. The government's paralyzed by ideology, fear, and cowardly shamelessness. Genuine media that holds power to account is in short supply. Setting anger aside for a moment, multiculturalism erodes the pre-political loyalty that underpins state legitimacy, the special sauce of governance. When institutions apply justice asymmetrically, aggressive on Islamophobia or native hate, hesitant or inverted when minorities are actually perpetrators, trust collapses. This is textbook anarcho-tyranny. Polls show historic lows in institutional confidence in the UK. Incidents like Henry Nowak's, amplified by the Pakistani grooming scandals in the UK. Oh, you haven't heard about that? I'll tell you about it after the break. Knife crime disparities and uneven protest handling accelerate the collapse. The consequences are stark. Feral zones in cities, no-go zones. Rural-urban fractures, nativist backlash, and escalating intercommunal violence. Would you choose to walk your dog where Wayne Broadhurst was stabbed to death? Or send your son to university where he might be degraded while dying and begging police for help? What would you do if violence and rape regularly targeted you and yours and the police seemed indifferent? It used to be brushed off as part and parcel of modern urban life, or don't look back in anger. That was low, dishonest, and weak. Now the strategy is silence, which may be the least bad option left for this dishonest, discredited government. He says, we're sliding toward the civil conflict I've warned of, not as cause, but as consequence of Britain's unraveling as a coherent nation. The drivers are obvious because they strike normal people faster, wider, and deeper. The reactions are predictable. War is adaptive behavior. Civil war is simply more brutal and socially miasmic. Henry Nowak's killing is not an isolated tragedy. It's a chapter in a larger, nationally suicidal debacle imposed on ordinary people by a governance system that has grown functionally undemocratic over 30 years. That is David Betts over there on X talking about what happened in the UK and very close to what happens here. More coming up on the Doc Washburn Show.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said the Trump administration is scrapping plans to create a $1.8 billion fund meant to compensate allies of the Republican president after widespread political backlash and setbacks in the courts. Iran stopped communicating with mediators after Israel threatened to bomb Beirut as it fights the Lebanese militia Hezbollah. That's according to two semi-official Iranian news agencies, but President Trump is disputing the claim and says talks are continuing. The reports on Tuesday by the Fars and Tasnim agencies comes as Iran insists the fighting in Lebanon is part of the wider ceasefire talks with the United States over the war. On Wall Street, the Dow by 228 points, the Nasdaq rose 7. This is SRN News.
Maybe this is you too. There's enormous frustration right now with healthcare costs. It is amazing. Healthcare costs for families in the last 20 years have almost tripled, and it just keeps getting worse. All this to say, this is why MediShare is so in demand right now. People are looking for alternatives, and MediShare is proven you can save thousands of dollars a year and actually like it more. Over 1 million Americans are now part of healthcare sharing, and MediShare is the gold standard. It's trusted. It works. It's been helping people save money and have peace of mind now for 30 plus years. It's not some big impersonal thing either. It's a community of people like you helping each other. So yeah, if you're frustrated too, here's your chance to make a refreshing change. You'll notice the difference as soon as you call. They're easy to talk to. You can get a price within 2 minutes. Here is the number. Call 844-45-BIBLE. That's 844-45-BIBLE. 844-40.
You know your business inside and out, but does your community? With Salem Media's podcast and video production services, you can share your expertise and connect with customers on their commute or wherever they listen. We handle production and distribution, so your content reaches the right ears on multiple podcast platforms. Stop letting competitors own the conversation. Call Salem Media today and ask about our local business podcast packages. Call Chris at 210-526-3631. 210-526-3631.
This is 101.1, The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. Start your day with Dave Ellswick in the morning, breaking down the stories shaping Arkansas and the nation and hearing what you have to say. Then in the afternoon, join Doc Washburn as he takes on the biggest headlines, asks the tough questions, and opens the phones for real conversation. Because on 101.1, The Answer, talk radio means your voice matters. Call in, sound off, be a part of the discussion at 501-401-1011. Plus, hear from some of the biggest names in talk radio. CNN Scott Jennings, Mike Gallagher, Larry Elder, bringing you smart analysis, strong opinions, and the debate everyone's talking about. Local voices, national perspective, and your chance to be heard. 501-401-1011. 101.1, The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk.
The price of gold has topped $5,000 an ounce. So how much will you make when gold hits $6,000? Investors are taking advantage of a little-known gold investment released by the government. Now you can too, with our free special report from veteran trader Jim Woods called Gold Wealth Boosters. This new report outlines investments that have returned 12 to 26 times more than investing in gold bullion. Get your free Gold Wealth Boosters report. Log on to EagleGoldReport.com. EagleGoldReport.com.
101.1 The Answer. Doc Washer Show continues. You want to get on the air with me, discuss what I'm talking about. The number to call was 501-401-1011. So if you haven't heard of the grooming gangs in the UK, let me tell you a little bit about it. Daniel Greenfield over at jihadwatch.org, September 7th, 2025. He says the police have been corrupted in multiple ways. Why were UK cops so eager to cover up Muslim grooming gang sex trafficking and assaults on young girls in the UK? At least one father was threatened with arrest when he tried to save his daughter from the Muslim sex grooming gangs. When police officers entered a room where underage girls were drunk and being assaulted by Muslim men, they arrested the girls, not the men. The cover-up continued for many years. Why? Political correctness and the fervent eagerness to cover up every Islamic crime and abuse is one answer. We've seen that play out again and again, but some of the officers were in on it. Jess Phillips is the UK Labour Minister for Safeguarding. And Jess admitted, quote, "I would be lying if I said that over the years I have not met girls who talked to me about how police were part of the perpetration, not just a cover-up," unquote. We already know this because girls as young as 12 years old stated that they were assaulted by police officers in the South Yorkshire police. And when they called the police, those officers came. 2 unnamed officers have been arrested. The South Yorkshire police force has a sizable number of Muslim personnel. And we know also that in at least one case, a young girl was taken by the Muslim rapists and attacked right outside a police station. When you see the UK police arresting anyone who defies Islam, who mentions Islamic terrorism or condemns Hamas, part of what's going on is the police have been corrupted in multiple ways. No. Now remember, J.D. Vance has called this out. Marco Rubio has called this out. You can be arrested in the UK for something you put on Facebook that offends Muslims. Update, February 27th, 2026. Daniel Greenfield on jihadwatch.org. The article entitled "Muslim Sex Grooming Gangs Spread to Canada." And he says, it goes where Islam goes, it's inevitable. What we call Muslim sex grooming gangs are a fundamental part of Islam. Not radical Islam, not Islamism, but Islam. From the earliest days of Islam, one of the incentives for Arabs to join Muhammad's jihadist movement was the privilege of raping young girls and taking them as sex slaves. Muslim sex slavery has gone where Islam has gone. And while it's been most notable in the UK, where it was practiced on an industrial scale, it's also popping up in Canada. Now, they got some quotes here from CB24.com, a Canadian news site. It says, in a release on Monday, Peel Police said in January 2024, investigators with their Vice and Human Trafficking Unit began looking into allegations that several young female victims, ages 11 to 14 years old, were being trafficked and exploited in the sex trade throughout the GTA. Police said, no, that's not Grand Theft Auto. I don't know what it stands for in Canada, but obviously the Canadians do. Police said it is alleged the suspect used coercion, manipulation, and threats of physical violence to maintain control and influence over the victims while financially benefiting from their exploitation. How do guys like this get access to 11 to 14-year-old girls? That's what I like to know. Mohammed Omar Al-Saleh, 21, from Toronto. 22-year-old Mustafa Abdo from Toronto. And 20-year-old Yusuf Al-Gburi from Mississauga, Canada, were all arrested and charged with obtaining sexual services for consideration, person under 18 years old, sexual assault, female under 16 years old, and sexual interference. Police added that a youth, 15 years old, who cannot be identified under the provisions of the Canadian Youth Criminal Justice Act, was also arrested in connection with the investigation. So Daniel Greenfield says, what are the odds that the 15-year-old is also named Mohammed? Just spitballing here. Just thinking out loud. Peter McElvenna, March 22nd, 2026, at Jihad Watch. The article entitled, Americans Learn from the UK's Grooming Gang Scandal. Well, I hope we do. He says, a grooming scandal that has been discussed for years in London is finally getting attention. Members of Parliament and London Assembly members are demanding an urgent investigation into grooming gangs in London. See, they went on in Rotherham for decades. They say authorities have failed to act on reports from survivors about the systematic abuse and the exploitation of girls as young as 14. This comes after a BBC investigation uncovered stories of, the BBC, I thought they liked Islam. Wonders never cease. This comes after a BBC investigation uncovered stories of young women being drugged, assaulted by multiple men, and forced into sex work to pay off drug debts. These cases are similar to those in Rotherham and Rochdale, where thousands of UK girls were abused over many years. The letter, signed by figures such as Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp and former Conservative leader Ian Duncan Smith, was sent to Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood. Sounds like maybe she wasn't born in the UK. And London Mayor Sadiq Khan. Yeah, he's a Muslim too. It calls for the national inquiry into grooming gangs to focus on London. London Mayor Sadiq Khan has been criticized for saying there were no reports and no indication of organized abuse in the city, and for not addressing questions about whether Muslim rape gangs have operated there. Critics now accuse him of ignoring the issue. Well, maybe it's because he does. London Metropolitan Police are reviewing 9,000 child sexual exploitation cases, with estimates suggesting that 2,000 to 3,000 involve grooming gangs. As in earlier scandals, most suspects are men of Pakistani heritage, accused of targeting white English non-Muslim girls. Grooming gangs have operated for decades and have faced little interference with group-based child exploitation dating back to at least the mid-1970s. That would have been 50 years ago. Authorities often overlooked these crimes while focusing on other types of child abuse. The problem became widely known in the 1990s and 2000s, but institutional failures allowed it to continue. Nearly 100 trials and convictions have occurred in over 40 towns and cities across the UK, including Rotherham, where more than 1,400 victims were identified between 1997 and 2013, as well as in Rochdale, Oxford, Telford, and Huddersfield. Despite all of that, London's Muslim mayor has said there are no such cases, or at least none on the same scale, in the capital. This has led to public anger, especially as the Metropolitan Police review thousands of old cases. The issue has been ongoing for years. The grooming gang crisis in Britain reveals a pattern of organized groups, often made up of Muslims, targeting white working-class girls. Authorities sometimes dismissed these cases out of fear of being accused of racism. They feared that. They also feared being accused of Islamophobia. In Rotherham, UK, a 2014 independent inquiry found that police and social services ignored evidence for years because they worried about community tensions and being labeled as bigots. Whistleblowers were called racists. As a result, offenders acted without fear for years while victims were ignored or blamed. Similar problems continue today. UK's Labour Party recently adopted a definition of anti-Muslim hostility, replacing the term Islamophobia. Oh, okay, so they make it sound even worse. Critics say this change could make it harder to discuss cultural or religious factors in these crimes. Using religious terms to describe grooming gangs might now be seen as problematic under the new guidelines, which could affect public debate and investigations. You think so? If journalists are accused of Islamophobia for reporting on grooming gangs, it could discourage important journalism. Yeah, it really could. And then it says, Americans, please take heed. And there's a link to the article over at Daily Signal, The Urgent Need for the UK's Muslim Rape Gang Inquiry and Lessons for the U.S. And I do plan to link to that on when I put the audio for this up on the podcast and my Facebook pages. He says the UK's nightmare, decades of impunity shielded by political correctness, is a clear warning for your porous southern border and unchecked immigration, with millions crossing under prior policies, including coming from regions with similar attitudes toward women. The risk of imported grooming networks grows in states like Minnesota and Michigan. Vulnerabilities in certain communities have seen exploitation spikes, often downplayed amid cries of Islamophobia. FBI reports on human trafficking flag risks in migrant populations. Accusations of bigotry have stopped important discussions in the UK, and a similar pattern is emerging in the US. If you put inclusivity ahead of safety, as UK authorities did, you risk making the same mistakes. I've been trying to tell you, I'm sharing this stuff with you, not because it's happening on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, but because it could easily come here. Easily. Victims in London today who have suffered greatly were let down by a system afraid to offend. In the U.S., policies like sanctuary cities and diversity initiatives could lead to similar problems. This is about protecting children regardless of perpetrators' backgrounds. Britain's belated probe illustrates the cost of delay, shattered lives, and damaged trust. For the U.S., the lesson is clear. Vigorously enforce laws, rigorously vet immigrants, and defend free speech against smear tactics. Ignore the dangers, and your daughters will pay the price. That's Peter McElvenna, Chief of Staff to Lord Pearson in the UK's House of Lords. And that's the article over at Jihad Watch called Americans Learn from the UK's Grooming Gang Scandal. Now, wait until I tell you the connection between this scandal and what the protesters are doing outside the ICE facility in New Jersey right now. That's coming up as the Doc Washer Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer.
The news never stops, and neither does your schedule. That's why we're here, keeping you up to date with all the biggest stories of the day. We're 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk.
Whether retirement's just around the corner or already here, it's common to be overwhelmed. That's where Total Wealth with David Lucas can help. Utilizing their signature Thrive planning process, they'll work together with you to identify and resolve your concerns, allowing you to fully pursue your passions and enjoy life. Because a successful retirement isn't just how much you save, it's the quality of life you live. Schedule a free evaluation now at TotalWealth.com. While you're at the website, download the free guide to Social Security. It'll help answer a lot of your questions. Go to TotalWealth.com or call 501-382-8800. 501-382-8800. One more time, go to TotalWealth.com or call 501-382-8800. That's 501-382-8800. 501-382-8800. Go to TotalWealth.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Lucas Total Wealth, an Arkansas registered investment advisor. Arkansas Insurance License number 161527743.
Did you hear Congressman Bruce Westerman on the Dave Ellswick Show?
You can get people from the Democrats to many times support conservative policies. What's your special elixir that's helping you do that?
Well, there's different groups of Democrats up here, and there's some that there's issues that you can work with them on. And most of the time, it's just looking at the facts and finding somebody that wants to work for the good of the country, and we can work together on issues when we do that. It's really the far left of the Democrat Party that's sounding the bell and that's got the attention of the media. But when we look at certain economic issues and issues with natural resources, we've been able to do a lot of good work on the Natural Resources Committee.
Don't miss Congressman Westerman, Wednesday mornings at 7:30 on the Dave Ellswick Show, 101.1, The Answer.
Early detection saves lives. I'm Dr. Gwendolyn Bryant-Smith. At the UAMS Breast Center, we use advanced mammography with same-day results for both screening and diagnostic studies.
I'm Dr. Rhonda Henry Tillman. Understanding breast health is your first step to early detection.
Make yourself a priority and schedule your mammogram.
Call 501-526-6100 and let's paint Arkansas pink.
Sponsored by this station, the Arkansas Broadcasters Association, and UAMS.
America is at a tipping point. To ensure we stay the land of the free and home of the brave, you need to be informed and engaged. That's why we're here. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk.
The Answer. Doc Washer Show continues. You want to get on the air with me and discuss what I'm talking about. Number to call is 501-401-1011. Wouldn't you know it? Daniel Greenfield over at Jihad Watch. Article came out a few weeks ago. ICE haters about to rally for sex grooming Pakistani pedophile. Really? Quote, he had been sexually grooming from the time she was 11 years old, unquote. Haters of ICE and lovers of filling this country with the worst of the worst and then keeping them here at all costs are about to discover a new martyr in the form of a Pakistani sex groomer who was allegedly doing what so many Pakistani Muslim sex grooming gangs have been doing for years in the UK. But this guy did it out of New York. And sure enough, there is a link to an article from the New York Post. DOJ moves to revoke U.S. citizenship of jailed Long Island doctor convicted of grooming 11-year-old girl. And here from the article. It says, the Justice Department moved Thursday, and again, this dropped on April 27th, to yank the U.S. citizenship of a disgraced Pakistani-born Long Island doctor convicted of sexually exploiting an 11-year-old girl. The denaturalization case against Hassan Sherjil Khan, 38, who applied for U.S. citizenship in August 2012, just 4 months after he traveled from New York to London to have sex with a 15-year-old girl he had been sexually grooming from the time she was 11, according to court documents. Khan was arrested September 2015, 2 years after he took the oath of allegiance to the U.S. and obtained citizenship. I guess maybe he felt like that as a Muslim, taking an oath to become a citizen of a country of infidels, he didn't really have to keep the oath. I hate to assume. I don't want to go too far on a limb here. But I'm willing to consider that's a possibility if it pleases the court, sir. In 2016, Khan was sentenced to 17 years in prison after pleading guilty to coercion and enticement of a minor to engage in illegal sexual activity. At his sentencing, Khan's victim described how the grooming and abuse left her bedridden with depression, triggered hallucinations and anorexia, caused her to self-harm, made her fall behind in school, and left her, quote, a shadow of the person that I could have been, unquote. So the great Daniel Greenfield over at Jihad Watch says, denaturalize, deport. It's the only way. Well, I would say deport him after he serves all 17 years, but not a minute before. Make him serve 17 years in the kind of prison that the January 6 hostages were in, with the kind of respect they didn't get from prison guards. If you catch my drift, and I think you might. Greenfield continues, it's important to note that nothing that Khan did is wrong under the Islamic law that he was likely following, in which girls are available for the sexual abuse of Muslim men, beginning with Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, from at least the age of 7, and non-Muslim girls and women are fair game, period. That's why this behavior remains endemic in the UK, and it's clearly an issue with Pakistani occupants of the United States. Well, I wonder. I'm thinking about a few months ago when Mayor Frank Scott Jr. of Little Rock welcomed hundreds of Muslims to War Memorial Stadium so they could have a big celebration, breaking their fast, the fast of Ramadan, the month-long period in which they claim to be fasting while they're gorging themselves. I wonder if Mayor Frank Scott Jr. would want to criticize or condemn any little piece of Islam, like the fact that the Quran makes it clear that Muslims can take sex slaves of non-Muslim women and girls, or if Mayor Frank Scott Jr. would just be horrified at the possibility of being labeled Islamophobic, so he would never criticize anything about Islam. I'm just wondering, what did the goofball say on social media? I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking questions. I wonder if anybody is actually going to run against him. Now, there is a lady running against him who has been in office for many, many years, and she is an advanced age. I wonder if somebody anywhere near as young as Frank Scott Jr., vibrant, will run against him. Don't get me wrong. If the person who has announced she's running against him is the only option, I will vote for her as many times as the law allows. 1001, 1002, 1003. Okay, I finally got a smile, a little chuckle from my producer. Sometimes I'm wondering, Okay, all right. He got the joke. It was one of those time release jokes. Anyway, but I just think that it is a bad thing to talk about how honored you are to be there with a bunch of Muslims when you get to thinking about all the stuff that their religion teaches and hence they believe. But that would mean I could never be a Democrat. Okay. So there are a lot of concerns out there about what the president was saying yesterday about the state of negotiations over Iran. And we're going to share some of those concerns with you. Hey, we report, you decide. Sometimes I say I'm just calling balls and strikes. I'm not even sure I'm doing that today, but I'm just saying, okay, this is what people are saying out there, because I think you need to know. The Doc Washer Show continues after the top of the hour news. Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer.
I won't tell your name.
In the world of generators, trust, not marketing, defines success. Northside Power is a trusted name when the fire goes out. We're ranked number one in generator sales, service, and installation. No gimmick and no side hustle. No matter your home's needs, Northside Power installs, service, and monitors generators 24/7. When the power goes out, excuses don't keep your lights on. Experience does. That's Northside Power. Generators isn't something we do, it's all we do. In the world of generators, trust, not marketing, defines success. Northside Power is a trusted name when the power goes out. We're ranked number one in generator sales, service, and installation. No gimmick and no side hustle. No matter your home's needs, Northside Power installs, service, and monitors generators 24/7. When the power goes out, excuses don't keep your lights on. Experience does. That's Northside Power. Generators isn't something we do, it's all we do.
Find us at 1011fmtheanswer.com. Download our app, stream us 24/7, or watch us at snc.tv. KDXE, Kamek Village, Little Rock.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. European Union lawmakers agree to increase deportations and detention centers abroad.
The EU's moved forward with a vast overhaul of its migration strategy, aiming to ramp up deportations in what rights groups compare to the Trump administration's aggressive immigration policies. The provisional agreement, which will now go to lawmakers and heads of state for approval, comes as critics argue the new regulation could harm human rights. EU member states will be able to set up bilateral deals with countries outside the bloc to build deportation centres. Some nations are already in talks with third countries, mostly in Africa, to host what's called return hubs on the model of Italy's detention deal with Albania. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Authorities are investigating the fatal shootings of 6 people in Muscatine, Iowa.
Iowa investigators believe the 6 were killed by a relative who took his own life when confronted by police. Muscatine, Iowa Police Chief Anthony Keyes says officers were called to a home in the city where they found 4 people fatally shot.
The adult male suspect had left the residence prior to law enforcement's arrival, but was quickly identified as Ryan Willis McFarland, 52 years, Muscatine, Iowa. Officers located McFarland on the Riverfront Trail near the pedestrian bridge. While talking to Ryan Willis McFarland, he took his own life.
The audio is courtesy of WQAD TV. I'm Mike Hempen.
California has a gubernatorial race today, and many eyes will be in Los Angeles, where a reality television personality is running for mayor there as the city prepares to host the Olympics. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 228 points, the Nasdaq rose 7, the S&P advanced 9, oil around $94 a barrel. More at townhall.com.
It's finally happening. The Fed is making a change in leadership, and that could have a profound impact on the value of your retirement. When interest rates go down, the value of precious metals like gold and silver can surge. Call Advantage Gold right now at 800-900-8000 and get your free gold and silver investor guide, a $49 value, plus a free copy of Ken Rogoff's insightful book, Our Dollar, Your Problem. Inside, you'll get honest information about gold, silver, and other precious metals, so you can explore your options with clarity and confidence. Our specialists can help you open a new account or transfer funds from an existing IRA, tax and penalty free. Markets can turn fast, but gold has maintained its value through every cycle, often holding strong when other assets falter and when the dollar weakens. Are you positioned? Don't miss this opportunity. Call Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000. Results may vary. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000.
With your news flash, John Loretta, 101.1 The Answer. A Little Rock officer has been arrested, charged with aggravated assault of a family member. That incident occurred in Benton. Conway residents are being urged to conserve water. The city is entering phase 2 of its emergency water plan, mandatory conservation, now in effect for all Conway residents. The Fayetteville School District will provide free breakfast and lunch to students, all students eligible at the schools starting this fall. A former Bentonville teacher has pled guilty to second-degree sexual assault. Former teacher Michael Whitfield of Bentonville High School sentenced to 120 days in jail. Tammy Chase Insurance, your local insurance expert, taking the time to understand your needs with no confusion and no pressure. Find out more at TammyChaseInsurance.com. John Loretta with your news flash on 101.1 The Answer.
With your sports flash, I'm Tony Desiri, 101.1 The Answer. Former Arkansas defensive tackle Dan Hampton is a nominee for the 2027 College Football Hall of Fame. He was a consensus All-American defensive tackle playing for Arkansas in the late 1970s. He's long considered one of Arkansas's greatest defensive linemen and was a key contributor on teams that helped establish Arkansas as a national power. The finalists will be revealed early next year. The Cardinals will continue their series tonight at Busch Stadium against the Texas Rangers. St. Louis losing Monday 2-1. They got a solo home run from Mason Wynn, their only run of the game, and have now dropped 6 of 8. Dustin May, he'll get the start tonight for the Cardinals, while the Rangers will counter with Nathan Eovaldi. And the NASCAR Cup Series returns to action Sunday as they race at Michigan. The sports update brought to you by Progressive. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. I'm Tony Desiri with your sports flash on 101.1 The Answer.
Congress is making progress on legislation to keep AM radio in every vehicle, but we're not done yet. AM radio delivers emergency alerts, local news, weather, and the trusted voices that keep our communities connected. Tell Congress AM radio still matters. Text AM to 39179. That's AM to 39179.
The secular crew doesn't listen to the media.
The only thing we know for certain is what the president has put on Truth Social and then what is being reported in the media. That doesn't mean we know what is being negotiated by the team and the Iranians. When they're talking about a deal being negotiated and it's not finalized yet, anything you hear in the media is speculation.
Secular. Afternoons at 3 on 101.1. The Answer. We bring you the biggest news stories of the day, not to tell you what to think, but to allow you to have the most information so you can make up your mind. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. Live from Little Rock, Doc Washburn.
It's fun when they let me out to go talk to people.
He's like the adorable puppy, you know, he chews on your Christian Louboutins, but somehow you still love him.
They say I'm a distinguished radio talk show.
No insult intended. The news you don't get anywhere else. Doc Washburn.
It's good to be able to get out of the studio so that I can actually kiss hands and shake babies.
You just can't make this stuff up.
As we say here in the natural state, y'all come see us.
You better watch what you say, or you might just find yourself with the lead role.
The Doc Washburn Show. Weekday afternoons 4 to 6.
If I don't lie down and take a nap, I'm going to keel over.
Doc Washburn on 101.1. The Answer.
Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock?
Oh, okay. I'll say something. No, it's not your fault. It's my fault. All right. The Doc Washburn Show continues on 101.1 The Answer. If you want to get on the air with me and discuss what I'm talking about, the number to call is 501-401-1011. All right. Now, we've got something for you here that is probably going to upset some folks. Robert Spencer over at Jihad Watch has a very incendiary article about the state of negotiations between our president and Iran. But before you shoot the messenger, figuratively speaking, let me just give you his bona fides. This is a guy who's been studying Islam for a long time, and he was one of the main organizers of the Draw Muhammad cartoon the event that they had back in, I think it was 2015. And it was at a community center in Texas. And a couple of couple of Muslims drove all the way from the Phoenix, Arizona area, and they're gonna kill some infidels. And the way he told it to me, the Wikipedia has it as the 2015 Curtis Colwell Center attack, a failed terrorist attack on an exhibit featuring cartoon images of Muhammad at the Curtis Colwell Center in Garland, Texas, May 3rd, 2015. The way he told it to me was, he said, the FBI had an agent inside the community center with us as we were doing the Draw Muhammad contest. The FBI had an informant who was closely following the car with the two jihad guys from Phoenix, Arizona area. Didn't do a thing to try to stop them. They jump out of their car shooting. Fortunately, we had an off-duty cop or a retired cop doing security. He shot and killed both the jihadists. But Robert Spencer said, but the FBI, Barack Obama's FBI, May 3rd, 2015, wanted us dead. Okay. James Comey directing. Okay. Was anybody ever held accountable? Nope. So before you get really upset with what Robert Spencer is saying that I'm getting ready to share with you, I just felt like I needed to tell you that about him. He's been warning about Islam since the time of the September 11th attacks, 2001, on this country. So here today in Jihad Watch, he has a very incendiary column called Trump Surrenders. He says the president turns on his ally to attain a false peace. I'm just sharing this with you because you need to know this is out there. He said Trump himself announced the betrayal on Monday. Quote, I had a conversation with Bibi Netanyahu today asking him not to go into a major raid of Beirut, Lebanon. He turned his troops around. Thank you, Bibi! Exclamation mark. I also had a conversation with representatives of the leaders of Hezbollah, and they agreed to stop shooting at Israel and its soldiers. Likewise, Israel agreed to stop shooting at them. Let's see how long that lasts. Hopefully it will be for eternity! Exclamation mark. President Donald J. Trump. So Robert Spencer says, this followed the Islamic Republic of Iran's insistence that the ceasefire include Israel's defensive actions against Hezbollah. When Hezbollah fired rockets into Israel anyway, which it almost certainly did, upon orders from Tehran, since the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps created Hezbollah and still operates it today, the Iranians broke off the negotiations that Trump wants so desperately. In response, the president should have told the world that the Iranian government was not operating in good faith and resumed military operations. No, not American boots on the ground, with the intention of weakening the Islamic Republic of Iran so that the long-suffering people of Iran can finally overthrow it. Instead, he turned against his own ally, Israel, ordering it to stop actions against Hezbollah, which did not, by the way, include a raid against Beirut, and by his own account, having a conversation with a jihad terror group, Hezbollah, in which they agreed, by what inducement he does not say, to stop doing what they were created to do and what is their sole purpose in existing. Robert Spencer continues. He says it's easy to see why Trump has done this. Gas prices are already high, and if the war drags on, as it has been doing, it will become an albatross around the necks of Republicans who are running in the midterms. And so Trump has ended it. But the ending leaves us even worse off than we were at the start. Before the conflict started, the Islamic Republic of Iran was a rogue regime that threatened the very existence of a sovereign state and had repeatedly announced its unshakably hostile stance toward the United States while enriching uranium to just below weapons grade level far beyond what is needed for any civilian use. After this conflict, all that is still true. Iran is weaker than it was before, but the Islamic regime is still in place, and now it can and will crow that it has outlasted the global superpower and bested the mighty Trump, who had up to this point given the impression that he was determined to restore America's strength on the global stage. But now, Trump's incessant announcements of impending doom and drawing of red lines, which the Iranians then instantly crossed, and his hostility to Israel and endless accommodation of Tehran makes the president look weak and indecisive and even ridiculous. Patriots used to mock Barack Obama for drawing red lines in Syria that would immediately be crossed, followed by the drawing of a new red line. Now, Trump has made Barack Obama look like a strong leader. None of America's war aims against Iran have been attained or will be attained. The Iranian leadership still has its nuclear material. It is still screaming death to America and death to Israel. The can has been kicked down the road yet again, and it will be up to a future president to deal with the threat of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Given Trump's actions, that future president will likely be a Democrat who will solve the Iranian problem the way Obama and old Joe Biden did, by sending a few $1 billion over to Tehran and hoping the money will keep the mullahs quiet until the next president is in office. He says Trump himself takes umbrage at this negative talk. On Monday night, he wrote on his Truth Social account, and I quote, "If Iran surrenders amidst their navy is gone, resting at the bottom of the sea, and the Air Force is no longer with us, and if their entire military walks out of Tehran, weapons dropped and hands held high, each shouting, 'I surrender, I surrender,' while wildly waving the representative white flag, and if their entire remaining leadership signs all necessary documents of surrender, and amidst their defeat to the great power and force of the magnificent USA, the failing New York Times, the China Street Journal, Wall Street Journal, corrupt and now irrelevant CNN, and all the other members of the fake news media will headline that Iran had a masterful and brilliant victory over the United States of America. It wasn't even close. The dumb lost their way. They have gone absolutely crazy, President DJT," unquote. In conclusion, Robert Spencer says, right, but Iran has not surrendered. The Islamic Republic is not going to surrender. No documents of surrender have been signed or will be signed. Instead, the Islamic Republic has survived, and that was all it needed to do in order to claim victory. It will wage jihad again against both the U.S. and Israel. One man has enabled the Islamic Republic to survive. The Iranian leaders should erect a statue of him in Tehran. That man is Donald J. Trump. That's Robert Spencer over at Jihad Watch. The website is called Trump Surrenders. He sounds very angry. Now, I spoke recently with a friend of mine who was in U.S. military intelligence for many, many, many years, who has a different point of view to that, and I'll share that with you on the other side of the break. But it's my job to let you know what people are saying out there. The Doc Washer Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer.
What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock?
Are you suffering with dizziness or balance issues? Do you just feel off? What about brain fog? Do you suffer with tightness in your neck or shoulders? How about exhaustion and vagus nerve imbalance? The Arkansas Upper Cervical Center may be able to help you. They're a husband and wife team who take a unique all-natural approach to finding the root cause of your symptoms, and they've been helping people in Arkansas for years. To get a free consultation, just go to their website, turnmypoweron.com. Turnmypoweron.com.
When someone nearby searches for what you offer, are they finding you or your competitor? Salem Media owns local search. Call 501-404-6535 and take your turf back. That's 501-404-6535 to own the neighborhood.
President Trump has triggered a $200 billion tech disruption, and Wall Street is asleep at the switch. This $200 billion investment in chip technology could make today's artificial intelligence chips obsolete. Technology that will make today's AI data centers a thing of the past, like IBM's old mainframes. While most investors are focused on old-fashioned AI, there are three companies quietly building a $1 trillion triangle that could transform every tech sector on Earth. These three companies are gearing up to develop and manufacture supercomputers the size of a dinner plate. Institutions like Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street are pouring more than $200 billion into this AI revolution. Investment guru George Gilder has been predicting tech revolutions for more than 40 years, including the iPhone, Netflix, and Amazon. Now he's got his finger on three companies whose technology will change tech forever. Log on to $1,000,000,000triangle.com to find out which three companies are working on what could be the biggest tech disruption since the internet. $1,000,000,000triangle.com. That's $1,000,000,000,000.com.
This is 101.1, The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. Start your morning with a voice you know and trust. Dave Ellswick, bringing you the issues that matter to Arkansas, the news behind the headlines, and conversations you won't hear anywhere else. Then in the afternoon, stay informed and fired up with Doc Washburn, breaking down the biggest stories of the day and what they mean for you. And all day long, hear from some of the biggest voices in talk radio. CNN's Scott Jennings, Mike Gallagher, and Larry Elder, bringing you sharp insight, lively debate, and the perspective you've been looking for. News, opinion, insight, and the conversations shaping our community. From Little Rock to the natural state and beyond. This is 101.1, The Answer. 101.1, The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. If things don't change, can you imagine America in 20 years? Scary thought, isn't it? The good news is we have the power to take our nation back. Stay right here for all the information you need. 101.1, The Answer.
.1, The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues. You want to get on the air with me, discuss what I'm talking about. You know me, I never rattle cages, don't want to upset anybody. The number to call is 501-401-1011. Okay, so you detected a slight note of sarcasm there. Yeah. So anyway, I talked to a friend of mine yesterday who had been, he's retired now, but he's in U.S. military intelligence for many years. And I said, look, I know that Trump for many years has been a master at the head fake. And I hope that's going on here. Because when you're just looking at what's publicly reported and what he's saying publicly, it's very concerning. And this guy reminded me of the economic sanctions that are making things very, very difficult for the Iranian regime. He reminded me that was the president or the prime minister of Iran turned in his letter of resignation because nobody's paying attention to him. And I said, well, no, I understand that with a regime like Iran, the guys in charge are the guys with the guns. And so the civilian president or prime minister or whatever doesn't have guns. It's the IRGC. But, it's concerning to me. Well, here's the irony. You ever hear these people saying, oh, Israel controls us? Yeah, Israel controls the U.S. government. Israel controls Trump. Israel controls this, that, and the other thing. But it's our president, and it always has been, regardless of who's in the Oval Office, Republican or Democrat. It's our president telling Israel what they can and can't do to protect their country. And that's not about Trump. Biden, Obama, George W. Bush, Clinton, how far you want to go back. It's always, and as a matter of fact, Netanyahu was saying a month or two ago, he said, you know what, I'm thinking about this thing about the foreign aid that the U.S. gives us, and maybe we should stop accepting it so we can just kind of do what we need to do over here. And I'm like, okay, wow. I've never heard an Israeli prime minister say that publicly, but I think Rand Paul will be happy with that, you know. I mean, there are some members of Congress who think we shouldn't be giving foreign aid to anybody for any reason. But Hezbollah, which is a jihad terrorist organization created by and sustained by the Iranian regime, has been launching a lot of missiles into northern Israel, and a lot of people in northern Israel have had to vacate their homes. And so if you're the prime minister of that country, it's like, okay, let's go ahead and take care of the terrorists. And then the president of a country across the ocean, us, says, no, because we're trying to do a deal with Iran. Okay, what's that got to do with Hezbollah and Lebanon launching missiles into our country over here? Anyway, just a thought. But my friend who was in military intelligence for years seems to think, yeah, there's definitely stuff going on behind the scenes we don't know about, and it's not getting any easier for Iran. And I'm like, yeah, so then why give them even more latitude? I don't know, man. Hugh Fitzgerald over at Jihad Watch has an article, Why Trump Demanded That Netanyahu Stop IDF Attack on Hezbollah Sites in Beirut. He's saying the Islamic Republic of Iran said it would stop its negotiations with the U.S. unless Israel stopped fighting Hezbollah in Lebanon. President Trump, who claims he has all the time in the world to negotiate, is in fact desperate to reach an agreement with Iran that will lead to a resumption of ship traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, which the president hopes will lead to a steep drop in the price of oil and hence of gasoline at the pump in the U.S. just in time to affect the midterm elections. So, Trump, eager to win Tehran's favor by saving its proxy Hezbollah from the IDF that has just launched its deepest assault in Lebanon in the last 25 years, has just given his marching or rather unmarching orders to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, demanding that he call off the IDF's assault on Beirut. More on Trump's demand and Netanyahu's response can be found here, and he links to the Jerusalem Post article from yesterday. Trump declares Lebanon ceasefire, calls off IDF strike on Beirut after phone call with Netanyahu. And the quote from the Jerusalem Post article says, U.S. President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke on Monday about the potential for a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. After the call, Trump announced that Israel had agreed that there will be no troops going to Beirut, and any troops that are on their way have already been turned back. In exchange, he said, Hezbollah had agreed that all shooting will stop, that Israel will not attack them, and they will not attack Israel. Okay, so Hugh Fitzgerald, Jihad Watch, says that's a bit misleading. Israel agreed only to stop its attack on Beirut, but promised nothing about the rest of Lebanon. Furthermore, he made clear that if Hezbollah did not stop or stopped only to again resume its attacks on Israel, the IDF would again attack Hezbollah targets in Beirut. So here's the next quote from the Jerusalem Post. Later, Netanyahu announced that he had told Trump that if Hezbollah doesn't stop attacking our towns and citizens, Israel will attack terror targets in Beirut. He also said the IDF would continue to operate as planned in southern Lebanon. The Lebanese embassy in Washington had earlier confirmed that Hezbollah had accepted the U.S. proposal, saying that the ceasefire framework would be expanded to encompass all Lebanese territories. Hugh Fitzgerald says, but as of now, the ceasefire framework only includes Beirut. The IDF will continue to target all Lebanese territories except Beirut. Hugh Fitzgerald says, I don't know if Trump really said this to the Lebanese ambassador, which is that the U.S., that Netanyahu had also agreed to the arrangement. He says, I'm certain of one thing. Netanyahu would never agree to stopping IDF attacks on Beirut no matter what. He made clear any Hezbollah attack from anywhere would trigger a resumption of IDF attacks on Beirut. Netanyahu would never agree to a full ceasefire in Lebanon. That would be a lifesaver for Hezbollah, just as it's finally on the verge of dismantlement under the punishing bombs of the IDF. He says Trump is behaving with Netanyahu like a monarch grandly giving orders to an underling and telling Netanyahu he must not strike Beirut. He's protecting the terror group Hezbollah that previous American administrations have recognized as a terrorist group. The Americans should not be protecting Hezbollah. They were the group that murdered 241 Marines in their Beirut barracks in 1982 and have murdered more American citizens in Israel ever since. Headquarters of Hezbollah are in Dahiya, a suburb in southern Beirut, which Israel has repeatedly attacked. Now, if Trump's order to Netanyahu is obeyed, they'll be throwing a lifeline to Hezbollah that will simply move many of its members into Beirut, where, thanks to Trump, they will be free from IDF attack. Yeah, this doesn't sound good. I hope my friend with the experience in the military intelligence is correct, but it doesn't sound good. Anyway, more coming up as the Doc Washer Show continues. 101.1, The Answer.
Think about how many times I had it all.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche says the Trump administration is scrapping plans to create a $1.8 billion fund meant to compensate allies of the president after widespread political backlash and setbacks in the courts. Quote, "We are not moving forward with the fund, period," Blanche said. Iran stopped communicating with mediators after Israel threatened to bomb Beirut as it fights the Lebanese militia Hezbollah. That's according to two semi-official Iranian news agencies. But President Trump is disputing the claim and says talks are continuing. Yet another good day on Wall Street, with the Dow up by 228 points. The Nasdaq rose 7, the S&P 500 advancing by 9. More details available at srnnews.com.
If you want unlimited talk, text, and data on a super fast network, Big Wireless will sell it to you right now for as little as $70 a month. Or you can buy it from Pure Talk for half of that. I'm talking about unlimited talk, text, and data for just $34.99 a month. But wait, there's more. When you switch to Pure Talk, you'll be switching to an American wireless company that's committed to keeping 100% of its customer service in this country. I appreciate that. In fact, that's why I switched. I also appreciate the way they support our vets and our skilled workforce. Dial pound 250, say micro, and get unlimited talk, text, and unlimited data for just $34.99 a month. That's pound 250 micro. Stop paying twice what you need to pay for the service you want and switch to an American wireless company that actually stands for something. Pure Talk.
Hey now, if you got mice, they're having a great time. So if you see one, you can bet there's two. And where there's two, and baby doesn't just make three, it's more like 5 or 6. So if you hear them getting down inside your walls, call the Bug Men at 663-9464 or go to bugman.com.
Turning down the noise by turning up the truth. 101.1, The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-555-2085. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Provider has helped thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million of affordable term life for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-555-2085. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-555-2085. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too. Call 800-555-2085 or biglou.com.
Don't miss cutting-edge coverage of daily news from an America First perspective on the Alex Marlowe Podcast on the Salem Podcast Network.
Everything I'm seeing from the public is that public does not like the idea of just pure welfare and charity being done for people who are able to work and are not willing to work. So able-bodied people have got to get back to work.
Subscribe today on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, or at SalemPodcastNetwork.com.
101.1 The Answer, Doc Washburn Show continues, where you can, if you hear us talking about something you want to get in the conversation, you can always call us at 501-401-1011. I'm fin to do something I never thought I would do. There are times when things are in the news that are not political, so to speak, but they're in the news, and a lot of people are thinking about them, and they kind of get on our radar screen, and we might talk about them every once in a while. Like years ago when Jussie Smollett lied about two guys beating him up with a 20-degree, minus 20 wind chill in the middle of the night in Chicago, saying, this is MAGA country. And Charles Barkley was the funniest he's ever been talking about Jussie Smollett. And so I played the audio from Charles Barkley on the NBA show, on my talk show, the other station years ago. I never thought I would do that. Well, I also never thought I would talk about this wonderful female basketball player, Caitlin Clark. But here we are. The great sports patriot over there on X had some thoughts which I think make sense. He says, I've been told countless times over the last 48 hours that I am a conspiracy theorist, that I do not know basketball, that I do not understand the WNBA, and that my articles are too long. So I wrote this. I do not believe there is some organized, calculated operation to take down Caitlin Clark. That would be too simple. The truth is deeper and far more damaging. Caitlin Clark walked into a league that spent nearly 3 decades convincing itself that its weaknesses were culture. For years, the WNBA was not a mainstream sports product. It was a cause, a talking point, a subsidized idea. A league people were told they should support, even with the product on the floor, often failed to earn that support from casual fans. WNBA's empty seats were excused. Their financial struggles were excused. Their rough offensive flow was excused. The poor spacing was excused. The inconsistent officiating was excused. The excessive physicality was excused. The lack of mainstream interest was excused. And anytime WNBA fans questioned the product, the answer was usually the same. You just do not understand women's basketball. Oh, and you're racist. That was the lie the league told itself for too long. Because a lot of fans understood basketball just fine. They just didn't like what they were watching on the court. Too often, the WNBA confused physicality with quality. It confused survival with success. It confused being protected with being excellent. It confused an insulated culture with a strong culture. And then Caitlin Clark arrived. She didn't come in asking people to support the league out of obligation. She actually made people want to watch women's basketball. That's the difference. Caitlin Clark brought range, pace, vision, passing angles, court gravity, creativity, and real basketball electricity. She made regular season games feel like events. She made casual fans stop scrolling. She made people who had ignored the WNBA for years suddenly care about matchups, rotations, officiating, coaching decisions, and league standards. And that's where the collision happened. Caitlin Clark exposed the gap between what the WNBA had convinced itself was good enough and, on the other hand, what mainstream sports fans actually expect. Fans want skill. They want spacing. They want pace. They want shooting. They want smart coaching. They want fair officiating. They want stars protected. They want basketball that looks modern, intelligent, and entertaining. They did not show up to watch Caitlin Clark get grabbed, held, shoved, bumped, and treated like every possession needs to become a wrestling match in the name of physicality. They also did not show up to watch the basketball constantly pushed into the background while social messaging, league-approved narratives, and cultural lectures compete for center stage. That's not evolution. That is a league clinging to old habits because it does not know how to handle a future standing right in front of it. And Caitlin Clark is the future. That doesn't mean she's perfect. She's not perfect. That does not mean veterans have no value. They have value. That does not mean physicality has no place in basketball. It does. But there's a difference between physical basketball and ugly basketball. There's a difference between toughness and fouling. There's a difference between defensive pressure and mugging someone off the ball. There's a difference between culture and bad habits that went unchallenged because not enough people were watching. Caitlin Clark did not create the league's problems. She exposed the league's problems. She exposed the officiating. She exposed the coaching gap. She exposed the outdated style. She exposed the resentment toward new fans. She exposed the discomfort some people have with a player becoming bigger than the system that was supposed to contain her. And more than anything, Caitlin Clark exposed a league that is still trying to force a generational player into an old version of basketball that she's already outgrown. That's why this does not feel like a conspiracy. Instead, it feels like a resistance to change. The WNBA finally got the player who could push the league into a new era, and too many people inside the ecosystem seem determined to make her prove she belongs in the old culture, the old era. That's backwards. You do not take the most skilled, market-changing player your league has ever seen and ask her to shrink into the culture that failed to attract mainstream fans in the first place. You build around her. You modernize around her. You protect what she represents because she is not just another player. She is the mirror. She is showing the league what it has been, what it is, and what it could become if it would stop defending its flaws as tradition. And the frustrating part is that the next generation is already here. You can see it with Caitlin Clark. You can see it with Paige Buchers. You can see it with Sonia Citron. You can see it with Aaliyah Boston. You can see it with Juju Watkins. The skill is changing. The training is better. The footwork is better. The shooting is better. The spacing is better. The basketball IQ is better. But too much of the league around them is still operating like nothing has changed. Same coaching habits, same officiating problems, same marketing instincts, same defensive excuses, same resentment toward criticism, same belief that the old WNBA culture must be protected, even if it means slowing down the very players who could make the league bigger than it has ever been. And that is the real story. Caitlin Clark is not being taken down by some secret plan. She's being resisted by a league that still does not fully understand what she represents. She represents a better product, a bigger audience, a more skilled game, a more modern game, a version of women's basketball that does not need to be sold as charity, activism, obligation, or guilt. It can be sold as basketball, great basketball, but that requires the league to stop pretending its weaknesses are sacred. It requires WNBA officials to clean up the game. It requires coaches to modernize. It requires veterans to adapt. It requires media voices to stop protecting the old product from honest criticism. And it requires the WNBA to stop resenting the very fans it spent decades trying to attract. So no, I do not think there is a coordinated takedown of Caitlin Clark. I think it's bigger than that. I think Caitlin walked into a league that spent years convincing itself its flaws were culture. And now that a generational player has arrived to expose the difference, too many people are trying to humble her instead of learning from her. That's not Caitlin Clark's failure. That is the league refusing to recognize the future. I thought that was pretty fascinating. That's a guy who goes by Sports Patriot over on X. And I think we've all seen examples of that in other parts of life, and certainly in other parts of economy and other parts of our business models out there in the world. I'm sorry. No, I'd rather not give any exact examples right now, but maybe the listener can fill in some of the punchlines on that one. So actress Sally Field was in 60 Minutes recently, and boy, did she put her foot in it. That's coming up next. Doc Washer Show continues, the Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1, The Answer.
Big box stores care about the Northside Power. We care about quality, from the installation to the power outage. We're here, local and ready. No box store confusion. Saying you're the expert doesn't make you one. Experience does. At Northside Power, we're Central Arkansas's #1 generator source for sales, service, and monitoring. Whether you're looking for Cummins or Kohler home standby generators, call Northside Power today. Generators isn't something we do. It's all we do.
The Danielle Gill Podcast, now available on the Salem Podcast Network.
Throughout Trump's first administration, the Democrats cried endlessly about foreign collusion and the usurpation of democracy through government abuse and corruption. All the while, they were doing just that. They were colluding with foreign governments, usurp democracy through government abuse, corruption, all of the things.
Subscribe for free today to the Danielle Gill Podcast on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or at SalemPodcastNetwork.com.
We're closer than ever to protecting AM radio in every vehicle, but Congress needs one final push. AM radio is essential during emergencies and keeps communities informed every day. Make your voice heard today. Text AM to 39179. Text AM to 39179.
This great moment in American history is brought to you by
Americans for Prosperity Foundation, Arkansas. Find out more at believeInar.com.
On July 4th, 1776, a group of seemingly ordinary men made an extraordinary decision in a small room in Philadelphia. They put their names to a document that would change the world. The Declaration of Independence wasn't just a breakup letter for King George. It was a bold statement of principle that our rights don't come from government, but from God, that all men are created equal, and that liberty is worth risking everything for. Today, 250 years later, those words still matter, because America isn't just a place, it's an idea born in courage, sustained by sacrifice, and passed from generation to generation. Celebrating America 250. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Join me weekdays for This Morning, America's First News. Hear the stories you'll be talking about and searching for all day as we go beyond the headlines and above the chatter with your first look at breaking news, money, Washington politics, technology, entertainment, entrepreneurship, and sports. We explain why stories matter. That's why we are referred to as the most important and relevant radio program. Join us weekdays for This Morning, America's First News.
There's a real battle going on, not only for our future, but that of our children and grandchildren. How do we ensure they have it better than we do? One way is to keep listening to us. We're your information source in the battle. 101.1 The Answer.
101.1 The Answer. Doc Washer Show continues. Where if we're talking about something, you want to get on the air and discuss it with us. Number to call is 501-401-1011. So, Sally Field was on 60 Minutes recently. And remember now, 60 Minutes is part of the CBS news operation. And just like ABC, NBC, CNN, their mission for many, many years is to protect the establishment at all costs, but especially to protect the liberal establishment. So she said something that was not true, and they let her run with it. Can we play the Sally Field clip, please?
When I was in the 7th grade, I was asked to memorize something that I never forgot. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peacefully to assemble. It's the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. I barely knew what it meant at the time. I certainly didn't know the importance of it. And now, almost 67 years later, I understand it like never before.
Well, she left off. The First Amendment recognizes 5 God-given rights, and she only gave you 4 of them. And by the way, when she got to the point when she said, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, there was a little tell when she said, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. The look on her face was like, oh, well, not too crazy about that part, but there it is. And then she says, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble. She said, that's the First Amendment. She's lying. There's more to it that she intentionally left out. Okay? The last part of it, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Oh, my goodness. Now, did Sally Field intentionally leave that out? Or is she elderly and she forgot that part? But why didn't anybody at CBS tell her that, hey, you left out part of it? I bet I know. Could it be because they want you to continue to think that the hundreds of people who showed up at the Capitol on January 6, 2021 were trying to do an insurrection instead of just peacefully redress their grievances to the government? Does that make sense to you? Because it makes sense to me. Now, this happens in the context of CBS being under new ownership and CBS News being under new management, and it being widely reported that there was a big blow up recently at a staff meeting in which Scott Pelley of 60 Minutes accused CBS News head Barry Weiss of murdering the show. The AP, in a remarkable sign of the turmoil at CBS top-rated 60 Minutes, correspondent Scott Pelley said CBS News head Barry Weiss was murdering the show and accused his new producer of having slender qualifications for the job, according to reports. Yeah, he actually said, you'll never be welcome here. See, because they got this, the new owners had this crazy idea that maybe we should do actual journalism and actually show both sides of a story. Whereas, of course, if you're a guy like Scott Pelley, CBS News, there's only one side, and that's the Democrat side. What do you mean both sides of the story? Well, what are you, one of them magats? See, that's the way they look at it. We are, by definition, evil. If we had a problem with Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, Hillary, whoever. I was watching a little interview with Martin Short came up on my YouTube algorithm the other day, and got a few minutes into it, and he's telling whoever the interviewer is, I love politics. I'm like, I'm not watching anymore, because he believes that we're trying to overthrow the government on January 6, 2021, and there's no talking him out of it, and life's too short. No can do. All right, so I'm Doc Washburn. Thrilled to be back on the radio, 101.1 The Answer. The great Dave Ellswick scheduled to be up at 7:06 in the morning. I'll see you at 4:06 tomorrow afternoon, God willing, on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer.
What else should I be?